Brilliantly struck by David Cooper. Back with Wilkins. Absolutely magnificent from Ray Wilkins. Well with the header, but it's Durant again. The last chance perhaps for Rangers. A chance is on for goal. Goal makes it 2-apiece. Johnston, and he scored.
Against Cantona, nicely left there by Haitley, and here's the break on. It's Ian Durant, through to Haitley. McCoist on the far side. Gary Speed is racing back to provide the cover. Here's Ali McCoist. Oh, he's done it! Ali McCoist from Rangers.
Here's Gascoigne now. Can he produce some magic? Still it's Gascoigne. Oh yes! A tremendous goal by Gascoigne. It's been very evenly balanced. Here's Gascoigne now, pushing forward, showing great determination. Oh, he's done it again!
There's a slip by O'Neill, and Laudrup to win. Rangers look for a goal and get one in the 8th minute from Brian Laudrup. Celtic's wall is 5 strong, but Alberts gets it through. The hammer has torn Celtic apart.
It's Barry Ferguson. Oh yes! The captain shows the way. Here now is Neil McCann. Is there going to be a twist in the tail? Lovenkrands! Yes, there is! Peter Lovenkrands! It had to be him! He has surely won the Scottish Cup!
Like this, here's Davis, put in by Darshville. Davis! Darshville! They've nicked it! Away from home! Manchester, brace yourself. Rangers are coming!
Bit of stoppage time. Kevin Thompson's corner. It's Bagheera! Borat stops it. Boyd! Edu has put it in! Morris Edu! Right at the end!
There's no doubt Vice has made an impact since he has come onto the park. Jelavic is in behind. It's Jelavic for Rangers! It's scored!
Jelavic on to Davis, and Lafferty's in already. He scored inside the first minute. Luco, definitely a threat. Still going. That is just brilliant. A goal for Luco. A goal for the fans. A goal for the cause. Here's Mackay. Barry Mackay. Looking to make it happen here. He might just do that. Right, Jack! Deflected off Brown and in!
And Gulaci was missing, and there's Lundstrom! John Lundstrom with the goal! But here's Joe Rebo, a slip from Tutan, Rebo! A bolt from the blue! Joe Aribo!
Hi there, and welcome everybody to the live Wednesday Bulletin on the 8th of February. I am joined by Chris Cherry. How are you doing today, Chris?
How you doing, Kyle? Thanks for having us again.
Not too bad. I was a bit worried. I thought Craig had absolutely patched us there before we started, but here we go. I had a big intro lined up for you there, Craig, but insert your own joke about Texas Ranger. It's great to have you on today, Craig.
Thanks for having me, guys. The pleasure is all on this side of the pond.
Yes, it's really good. I think that's us officially international. We've been in Australia now live from the States. So that can only get good. And this is Ibrox ever expanding network. Look, in today's show we've got a really good show to talk about. We're going to try something a wee bit different and talk about what we think the guy's strongest 11 is. I'm sure we'll talk about if everyone's fit, who we would include in there. I'm looking at you, Philip Lander, cough, cough. See, if it starts feeling like a Michael Beale team yet, based on what we think our strongest 11 is, who do we think is going to go in the summer? Where do we need to look to improve? Maybe we look ahead to the Partick Thistle game on Sunday, and a point that I think is just totally bullshit, to be quite honest with you, is that only the Rangers in the Celtic game over the weekend are going to have VAR involved in it. Be keen to get the guys' thoughts on that. But before we get into the podcast proper, just want to mention the sad passing of John McMillan at the age of 89, who was a former president of the Rangers Supporters Association during the Craig White years, which is no mean feat, and was on the committee for the Rangers Fans Fighting Fund. Not a guy that I know personally, but just wanted to mention him, as there's not been a bad word said about him and all the tributes that I've seen across Twitter and social media, and just want to pass on our condolences to the McMillan family from all This Is Ibrox. It's difficult to move on from something like that, but I'll come to you on this day first here, Chris. As always, from the account WATP72RFC, go and check it out if you've not already. On this day in 2003, Rangers played their second last game against Dunfermline that season, away from home, winning 3-1. McCann, I wonder how he celebrated that night. Caniggia and Lorenzo Amoruso all on the score sheet. I think there was a wee goal from Lorenzo Amoruso. I seem to remember it was just an absolute screamer of a free kick. But just a wee word in Amoruso for you, for Chris there, just and how good was he at scoring these types of goals?
Big stallion. I think when he first came to the club, when you used to see him going to take the free kicks, it was a bit of a running joke, because he used to put them in the stands quite a lot of the time as well. But I think he did have the occasional belter of a free kick in him, to be fair. But majority of times when I seen him going up to it, I can't remember who would have been the free kick taker at that time. But you're thinking, why is Amo even out it? But he did have some good finishes in him.
Yeah, and Craig, just a wee word from you about Lorenzo Amoruso, just as a player.
Oh, I love Big Amo. I was still in Scotland watching him at the time. I didn't move over here until spring of 2005. Loved Amo. Funny wee story about Amo. I went to the NARSA convention in 2011 when Walter Smith was back on his second term as manager. And Amo was one of the former player guests. And there was a big it wasn't quite as well organised that year, because I went this Vegas as well, but Big Amo's on the stage, and there's this kind of informal line that had been to meet Walter and the team, And Amo's there, and I'm shaking Martin Bain's hand and talking away with him, and I've backed into Amoruso. Big Lorenzo Amoruso, who I've looked up to for all these years. I've knocked him off the back of the stage. And he gets up, and I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, no problem. Super nice guy, gentleman, and what a player. What I'd give to have him back in the team.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. He's a great centre-half, great servant to the club, and scored quite a few memorable goals. There was this one I remember. There was one against Aberdeen, although I'm not sure that was a free kick. I just remember it being an absolute rocket. And there's obviously the one against Celtic. I don't need to say too much about that. But look, as I alluded to at the start of the show, we're going to keep this conversation quite broad, quite open. Really keen to get everybody who's watching's comments on it, because I put two Rangers supporters in a room, and we can disagree on all the different points. But look, Craig, I'll start with you here first on this. We're going to try and see who we think the sort of strongest 11 for the team is. I don't think we're too far away from full fitness. We've got a couple of long-term injuries out, like Hollander at the back. I've seen sort of Lawrence being sort of pushed into that long-term injury category as well. But we'll start off in the goalkeeping situation here. So a nice easy topic of conversation for you to start on your debut. But look, obviously we've got McGregor, McLaughlin, and McCrory sitting in there. You know, I think the opinion is swung away back on McLaughlin again, because he had a very poor game for me at the weekend. I know that Beale came out and said, look, you not just look at the goalkeeper, you look at the centre halves, what are they doing, etc. But yeah, who would you have as your strongest Rangers goalkeeper here?
Alan McGregor, don't think it's a question at this point. You know, I think Michael Beale has been quite transparent in his press conferences. I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before that, where he pretty much opened up on the topic. You know, he hadn't ruled McLaughlin out, but he says he's going to rotate the keepers, which is understandable at McGregor's age. You know, he touched on young McCrory, said he's not trained enough, he's still dealing with an injury. So I think, from what I can tell, Beale still regards McGregor as number one for right now. I don't think it's any secret they'll be in the transfer market in the summer for a new goalie. Whether I don't think McLaughlin will ever be number one. I don't think he's good enough. And the jury's out on young McCrory whether he can make that step up or not. I'd like to see it, but we just haven't seen enough of him. I think he played one random Old Firm game and he did fine, but
yeah,
you know, he's not had any minutes like McLaughlin's had. So I think we need to see more of that. I'd like to see us maybe go out and buy a real coup of a keeper and make that one of the major transfer priorities for the summer, and maybe have McCrory as number two and give him some minutes. That would be my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout, Chris. I know this has been kind of talked to death about a bit on times, on especially in our group chat. But you know, I heard an interesting opinion. McCrory's due back in 3-4 weeks, I think it is, and I've heard a couple of people now just saying, look, okay, although the league's not mathematically over, but surely he's got to be worth just when he's fit, just sticking in goals for the rest of the season, or would you continue to stick with McLaughlin McGregor rotation?
I wouldn't rotate it, but I would stick with McGregor, I think, to the end of the season. I think if McCrory was good enough, he would be playing by now, because the two keepers we've got the new aren't covering themselves in glory. We've still got 2 cups to play for, and you never know what could happen in the league, so I wouldn't be rotating the keepers. I think McLaughlin, everybody had the opinion that he was better coming for crosses, but I think the last couple of games that you've seen him play, he's kind of debunked that myth. McGregor, you know what you're getting with him. He's only got a couple of months left in him, but I would stick with McGregor, and I would try and get a new keeper in the summer's priority. I'm not really interested in the likes of like Begovic and that, the Premier League guys that haven't played for years. I would like to see us go for a guy in his 20s, mid-20s, and try and get a bit of longevity out of him. But I don't know what kind of budget we're going to set aside for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Bring back Ronald Waterhouse and 100,000 from Man City or whatever it was. That's the type of transfer that I'm looking for here. Look, Chris, I'll stick with you in the next one. The sort of next position that we'll come to is right back. There's only really two candidates for this. I think I know everybody's choice in terms of. I don't think there's a question that Tav is the strongest right back, but. Is it maybe time to have a wee conversation about how his season's going? Because I was looking at it there, he's got 5 assists and 8 goals in the league. I think all bar 1 or 2 of those are penalties. What's your thoughts here? Do you think that he deserves a wee bit of, not deserves, that's the wrong word, but he maybe could be rested a bit more than what he has been? I know that they've not really mentioned it, but my suspicion is that he is carrying some sort of niggle and has been for quite a while. But yeah, in terms of right back, who would you say was the strongest right back at Rangers at the moment?
Still Tav, without a doubt. I think he actually confirmed he did have a knock his cell, I think maybe a few months ago. I think everybody could see it the way he was playing. But under Gio, he wasn't really as influential as you can see now. I think he's getting a wee bit more involved. But at the weekend, I was sitting there, I think I was near the end of the game, and I was looking, I was thinking he actually is the weak link on this part just now, and I was quite surprised by that. I don't think he was having a terrible game, but he wasn't influencing the game as much as Borna is on the left-hand side. Obviously, when Beale was here before under Gerrard, that we were heavy reliant on the wing-backs, but I feel Borna's playing better of the two of them. But again, Devine, I don't think he's anything better than average for what I've seen so far. I think Tav deserves to get cut a bit of slack for his recent. He's played nearly every game since he's been here. You need to cut him a wee bit of slack if he does have a dip in form. If it is an injury, then fair enough. Hopefully next season he gets a good pre-season in him and he can get back to full fitness. But again, I wouldn't mind seeing somebody coming in that could realistically challenge him for the right back perf as well.
Yeah, totally agree. And Craig, a fantastic servant to the club. Tav, he's been really good. His goal record and assist record speaks for itself. But certainly a few times this season, and particularly more than others, I suppose, there's been quite a lot of people frustrated with him. As Chris said there, he maybe did look a wee bit of a weak link at the back at times, and all I'm saying is that his standards are very high, and I don't think he's quite been at the same standards as what he has been in the previous seasons. What would you do with that? I mean, there's a wee comment here coming in from Paul McGarrigle. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I know exactly who he was talking about. We were linked with a right back. Do you think that's a position that Rangers will look to strengthen, or would you just maybe stick with Devine and just rotate the two of them a wee bit more, sort of like the Patterson-Tav dynamic that there was a couple of seasons ago?
I have mixed feelings. I think Tavernier is the club captain. You're right, he's been a magnificent servant, but the Rangers captain is judged on a different berth than everybody else.
Yeah.
He's been at the club 8 years. He started in a Warburton team that took us back to the top, and you never forget what he's done for the club and his European runs and his goal scoring records and assists. We've never really had a right back like that, and what kind of modern day right back. I think we were crying out for that in years gone by. So I've got nothing but praise for James Tavernier. Unfortunately, he's one of these players that have been around long enough to kind of get a pass for me. Morelos is another one. I think we're appreciative of what we've done, but it's time to look forward. Is Tavernier the answer going forward? I think in the short term, yes. In the long term, I'm not so sure. I think he is a defensive liability, especially in the big games. We can only judge players by the stuff we've seen from them in the past, and it's blown hot and cold. So, I mean, James Tavernier, club captain, wonderful goal scoring record, wonderful servant to the club. But how many managers, how many trophies? These are the questions that need to be asked. So I'm going to err on the harsh side of things when it comes to James Tavernier. But again, I'm not judging him the same way I'm judging Adam Devine, who I think is capable of coming through and playing as well. But is he the long term? I'm not so sure. But the big question mark on the right back position for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. This is where we're all surprised, and Mateusz Zukowski comes back from his loan spell in Poland like an absolute beast, just ready to take that right back spot. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I totally agree with you there, Craig, is in terms of that will be something that we come to look at in the summer. Next one, Craig, I'll stick with you. I think it's fairly straightforward here. There's quite a few players to pick from. I was going to put James Sands in this sort of bracket, but yeah, but based on both your reactions there, I think I was right to leave him out. But again, I don't think we need to say who we think the strongest pairing here, but I've put down Davies and Goalton. Obviously, we've got Suter, who is, I think he's still out at the minute, just waiting, but he's very, very close. We got Leon King and Phil Hollander. Now, my argument would be that I think a fully fit Hollander is our best defender at the club, but he's not. So based on the sort of partnership over the last sort of 8-9 games, I've been really, really encouraged by Ben Davies and Connor Goalton, Craig.
Yes, and since Bales came back, he said it himself, he built a team from the back, and I think he rushed Goldson back, and it's probably a gamble that's paid off for him, because his record so far has been great, barring the draw against Celtic. We should always win those games, but I think Ben Davies has been great. Kind of reminds me of Davy Weir, the way he reads the game, kind of goes about his business in a more quieter front. Hollander a bit more physical, but I would agree with your first comment there. If Hollander was fit and firing, I would probably had him in front of Davies. But then again, we've only seen Davies on a run of since Bale's been here, so not comparing apples with apples. But I think they're playing well so far. Long may it continue. I like that balance, having a left-sided player. So whether that's Suter, whether it's Hollander, whether it's Davis, and it is Davis. Keep hearing Ben Davies for a lot of people, and I cringe every time I hear it. It's Ben Davis.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. So I would say that's the strong pairing for now. I would like to see us sign another centre half in the summer as well. But that's all dependent on if Suter can come back and find fitness and challenge for first team place.
Yeah, again, I totally agree with you. I think that's something the manager was alluded to when he was a few weeks ago when he was rattling off a list of areas that we need to strengthen. And I was a bit surprised when he mentioned centre half, but now thinking about it and seeing it on paper, especially with big Phil's name there, it does kind of make a bit of sense. And I'm quite encouraged that we're already looking to strengthen that position. Look, Chris, I'll come to you in the next aspect here. Obviously, it's left back now. Like a lot of people, I just assumed that when Barisic, when Yilmaz is back fit, Barisic would be out of the team. But we've seen somewhat of a bit of a revitalisation with Barisic since Beale's come in, because it has been fantastic. There was a wee stat I was looking at here. He's third in the assist charts in the SPFL, which I found I would never have thought that. But he's got 7 assists and 1 goal from the weekend there. And again, I was thinking, is it Beale that's come in that's changed this? But he was quite consistent. He was arguably our most consistent player under that really, really poor form when Gio was the manager. What is your thoughts on this sort of left-back situation? Is it as straightforward as when Yilmaz is back? Do we expect him to go straight into the team after a couple of weeks, after getting a wee bit up to fitness? Or do you think that we're going to see Warrior Borna continue for the rest of the season?
No, I was the same as you. Obviously, I thought when Yilmaz comes in, he would be straight into the team after a few weeks. But as you said, he's up to a gear since Beale's came in. I don't know if that is down to Beale or what, but his deliveries in the last few weeks have been brilliant, on point constantly. There's just nobody there to attack on the other end, or he would probably be top of the assist charts by now.
Yeah.
But it's his shirt to lose, the same as every other player. They're all fighting for their shirt. I just think the price tag that Yilmaz has got, it's hindering over him in it. He needs to be the long-term solution, but we've not seen enough of him to know does he even fit into Beale's style of play or whatever. But I think Borna, as you said, he's consistent in that, but he's always got a car crash run him round the corner, isn't he? So maybe wait till the next Old Firm game's by and we'll see where we're at.
That's it. And I'll start you, Chris. Were you surprised at the amount of assists that he had this season? Because see, if you'd asked me how many assists he'd had, no way would I have said 7. I'd have maybe said like 3, maybe 4 at a push. But like that's surprised me, to be honest with you.
I think a lot of them's been under the radar this season. Usually, like him and Tav, you know they've got high assists, but he must have got quite a few under Gio, I'd imagine, because I can't see him. I think he's got, is it 8 assists he's on? 7, 8 assists?
Yeah.
I think just in the last few weeks he's had a couple of, as I said, good deliveries in that, and if folk attacked him, he would have made assists, but he's kind of went under the radar.
Yeah, son of them off strikes again. And Craig, where do you think, or where do you sit in this divide? Do you think that when Yilmaz is fit, that given the price tag that we paid for him, that he should be going into the Rangers team and starting and playing well? Or do you think it's a bit more of a case of you need to fight for your place, Borna's playing well, and that he's got to take it off him?
I think what you said last there is what Beale's laid down, isn't it? I forget who it was that said in one of the press conferences. I don't think it was the manager at the time. It might have been Ross Wilson, and they said we've signed him for 5 years, not 5 minutes, something like that. Yeah. So we have to take that at face value, I suppose. He is on a long-term contract. Beale will have a look at him. I think we've only seen Yilmaz in one cup game or something when he came in at home at Ibrox. He looked very comfortable. Looked very quick, got good deliveries in, etc. Got to the byline. He's a different kind of player than Borna in that sense. But I agree with what Chris says. It's Borna's shirt to lose at the moment. But the big question mark again, Bonner's one of these players, same with Tav, Morelos, all these stalwarts that have been with us for a number of years now. How long can they keep up this form? That's the big question. And can we sign enough quality to back it up when they do dip in form, bring someone else in and maintain the standards? That's what we all need.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree there. It will be interesting to see. I said I've gone back and forward on it. I think if Borna stays in this condition, I think it'll be really hard for Yilmaz to take his place. But as Chris said there, like, he's always got a bit of a horror show round the corner. So we'll see. Craig, I'll stick with you in this point here as well. This is this is where it gets interesting, and we could probably spend the next half hour of the podcast just talking about the sort of midfield and the sort of front three, if you will. But for the arguments of this, the majority of games that Field's played, maybe notwithstanding the weekend, and given the fact that Lundstrom was injured, he maybe put on a slightly more attacking. But I'll say that we're playing sort of two sitting midfielders here. You've got Lundstrom to pick from. You've got Jack, Kamara, Raskin now, Steve Davis, and James Sands. What do you think is our strongest pairing out of these sort of six, if they're all fully fit? And do you think that, I don't know, I've heard people saying that, Lundstrom and Jack don't really complement each other, or Lundstrom and Kamara don't really complement each other? Are you of that school of thought as well, or what would your sort of two defensive midfielders be?
It's a good problem to have in a sense, isn't it? But I think, the timing of you asking me, I'll take Lundstrom and Kamara based off their form at Tynecastle. If they can do that all season, then that's exactly what we need. I do take your point on the blend and getting that right. Jack and Kamara seem to be the one that didn't really complement each other. Again, Ryan Jack, jury's out on him just based on staying fit. If you can stay fit, that's great. But an on-form John Lundstrom, an on-form Glenn Kamara at Tynecastle the other night, that's the standard. If Raskin can come in and continue that standard, if those standards dip, like I said last point, that would be ideal for me. But right now, I don't think there's anyone that we can rely on in terms of being in and out of form. So I would stick with the in-form players. Well, Lundstrom took a knock. Supposedly not meant to be as bad as it is, but I would go with a fully fit and in-form Lundstrom and Kamara.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. Paul McGarrigle here says, going forward, some games it could be Raskin and Kamara. I think that's got me very excited. Based on 10 minutes, I think that would maybe be my two that I would choose for these positions. But Chris, are you going to say anything different? I mean, I think this is an area perhaps where, well, how do you say this without the players have underperformed the most? I'm looking at that list: the Lundstrom, Jack, Kamara, Sands, and maybe a bit harsh and Stephen Davis. But I certainly think that the other four that I've mentioned there have largely underperformed this season, and should be doing a lot better. Hopefully, the inclusion of Raskin in this department kind of maybe puts a wee rocket up their backside. Something Craig alluded to there, that Tynecastle was their best, or Rangers' best performance of the season. Do I think it was a coincidence that Lundstrom and Kamara were absolutely on at that game? No, but yeah. What's your sort of favoured two in the sort of defensive or defensively holding positions?
I think you're right in you're saying all the midfields underperformed this year, but for me, I've only seen 8-9 minutes of Raskin. I'm going to put him in my strongest 11.
Yes.
And I'm going with Lundstrom alongside him for me. But I want to see Lundstrom getting back to the kind of way he was playing against Celtic when Bassey was there trying to assist him and he was giving him what for. I want to see that kind of Lundstrom with the total disdain for his... I thought he was going to just rip the league apart this year and be the best centre midfielder in the league defensively. But obviously he's been playing through injury this year, but he's just not played that well. I think when he's got the ball at his feet and he's trying to pass the ball and that out, it's that's not in his locker. It's no that kind of game. But I think if he's just to sit and let other players play, I think he's totally suited to that, as he's probably experienced in the Premier League for years. So I'm going to go Lundstrom and Raskin because he just looks like a baller. Minus the socks.
Yeah. No, that's it. I think he's already alluded to that in his social media and said that he would sort his socks out, which is good for all the Rangers dads out there. Look, Craig, see, before we come on to our next point, I've got a wee question I'd quite like to ask you. I don't know how much you are into the MLS and stuff like that over there, but James Sands, how's he sort of viewed over in America? Because I know he was like sort of sniffing about the national team a couple of times. I think he's had maybe 1 cap, 2 caps, something like that. But it seems to be a bit of a failed experiment, James Sands, and he's just, I've said it before in previous podcasts, he's just not really up to Rangers standards.
No, and it's a shame because I wanted to see him succeed. He came in with a good structured loan. I liked having a look at players over 18 months rather than 6. That was fair. He's underperformed. I thought he did quite well. I mean, up until the PSV game, we qualified for the Champions League. He did quite well that game. Ever since, it's not what's required. To your first question, though, I don't watch a lot of the MLS. I mean, I've been to a few Houston Dynamo games. It's watching paint dry. I think if you look at the US national team, they filter their talent through big clubs in other countries.
Yeah.
They're not coming up through the MLS. You have to be an absolute superstar in the MLS to get a game for the USA national, in which case you wouldn't be playing in the MLS anyway. So I don't know. I think it's a punt. It's a kind of a marker of where we are, unfortunately. I.e., we've no money and we need to get these types of players. So I had promise for him. Sometimes these things work out, sometimes they don't. Unfortunately, it's not, and I don't think he'll get a game. I think Michael Beale's spoken for him in his actions. He hasn't given him a game despite some of the injuries and suspensions and whatnot, so he's not featured. So I think he'll go. In terms of the American view on James Sands, couldn't tell you.
I think that says it all. That that he's just not made enough of an impression at Rangers, because as you said, it's the type of clubs that the US national team are funneling their youth float. But the fact we've got Tillman over here as well, trying to promote them, but it's just not happening. And yeah, I think we'll see him back at New York, if not at the end of the summer. It'll be maybe within the next month or so. Look, I'll come to you, Chris, on the next wee point here in terms of the sort of attacking part of the midfield. I've just gone for a sort of 3, and I imagine this is the bit that we could talk about for ages on this, because there are so many players that can occupy all these sort of positions. So who would you sort of pick as your sort of best 11? I'll go through some of the players that we've got. We've got Kent, Tillman, Cantwell, Hadji, Arfield, Lowry, Lawrence, Wright, Sakala, and Matondo. And I'll assume Scott Wright's your first name on the team sheet.
No, not quite. I've gone with the first 3. I think a 4-2-3-1 is the way we should be going most games. I think Kent, Cantwell, Tillman, wherever you want to put them, they can all interchange. I think they all look capable of giving defences nightmare with their movement and that. Kent, he's upped his game for Beale's come in. He looks happy playing again, as opposed to just staring out in the touchline under Gio, where he wasn't affecting in any games. Cantwell, I've only seen him limited, but he looks good. Great ball carrier. He's getting us up the park. I don't think I've seen him misplace a pass where he came yet. He's winning his fouls, same as Kent does as well. And then you've got Tillman, who gets the goals and the assists. He seems to be the one that can just provide a bit of magic out of nothing. So I think with that 3, once they get to know each other's game, if Kent stays that is, if the 3 of them get the minutes together, nobody's going to cope with them in the league, I don't think, eventually.
Yeah. I'll start you, Chris. How impressed have you been with Cantwell this season, or the 3 games that he's come in this season? in terms of just offering us something just a bit different. I allude to the number one, the ball that he had into Morelos for the St Johnstone game, just something that he said in his own press conference that he liked to assist the assisters, and then that ball that he had for Tillman's goal as well. It's just he's offered us something a bit different, and you can really see why Beale's brought a guy like him into Rangers. Chris.
Did we lose Chris? We might have lost Chris.
That's okay, but I cannot.
I'm surprised he hadn't played for November, I think. But he's came in. He looks as though he did say himself he's got a good base fitness, but I was surprised he's actually looked as sharp as he is. I think the very first game the ball was up in the air and it came down. He's just pulled it out of the air, no problem. His touch, he's got that vision as you're saying there. Him, Tillman and Kent have all got the vision there. So if we can get the runners after them, we should be picking up a lot more goals than relying on the same players as we have been for the last few seasons. Hopefully he can chip in with some goals himself.
Yeah, totally. That's it. I think if he could add a couple of goals, he was really close at the weekend again. Just hit a shot just over the bar. Look, Craig, I'll ask the exact same question you. There's a plethora of players to be picking from here. I think I had a few comments today because I said that if it was me going forward with something like this, if Tom Lawrence was fit, he would be included in any of my Rangers teams going forward. I just think he's that good and he can play any of those positions. I just think he's the ideal guy to be playing in a sort of attacking three behind a forward where it's just fluid. But who would your sort of 3B?
It's tough. I think I've answered most of your questions on current form. We're talking about, what players bring in general. But I agree with you on Tom Lawrence. He's got a bit of steel about him that maybe the others don't. So it depends on which game you're talking about in terms of picking them. But it's hard to disagree with Chris and when McGarrigle in the comments there. I think Cantwell has looked extremely sharp since he came in. Despite not playing, I think you can just tell he's got that. He's played at a level above, so he's come in and looked quite comfortable so far. So him, Tillman, and Kent's become kind of valuable to what Beale does and how he sets up, isn't he, in terms of winning the ball back. If we go back to what Chris said earlier, we'll see how they do against Celtic. That's kind of the acid test, isn't it? We'd need Lundstram and Kamara to have that performance and getting us the ball back quickly so that we can have Tillman and Kent and Cantwell occupying their defence most of the game. That'd be wonderful. But yes, Tom Lawrence is out for the foreseeable. I'm not sure when he'll come back, but I think when he does, I think you'll find that he's probably in the starting 11 for me.
Yeah, just somebody that none of the three of us have really mentioned, Craig, is Yanis Hadji. Because he has been such a good football player for us, and I am really struggling to see where he gets in here. I know that Beale's talked about, and again, partly doing this just to highlight how strong we are and the depth that we have at the club, because until it was on a bit of paper in front of me, I didn't realise that this is what the squad looks like, and on paper it is a very, very good squad. But I know that he will use the 5 substitutions, but where do you see Hadji coming in? Is he going to be a sort of rotational player for because the most similar player I can see to him at the club at the moment is Cantwell? Can you see them being, in and out depending on who's fit or whatever, or just the types of games? Or weird, because surely we can't leave a guy like Yanis Hadji on the sidelines.
Oh, he'll just come in, Kyle, whenever Cantwell gets injured. That's how life works at Rangers. We'll need him. Because we'll always have injuries. This is a reality we have to face. It's Lawrence just now, it's Helander just now, it's Čolak, someone else in 6 months. You just don't know what's down the line. But we need a good squad, and I'm happy with what Beale's done so far. He's picked his strongest players as soon as they're available, and we've got results. I don't think it's rocket science in that sense. I know his his tactical game and his man management speaks for itself. But he's put the best players on the park. Yanis Hadji's up there. Between him and Cantwell, we'll need to see more of Cantwell, and that's a fight. I think he doesn't play both. I think he plays either or. Tillman's just got that bit of magic that nobody has. He's our match winner. So for me, I think Tom Lawrence starts whenever he's back fit, but we'll need Yanis Hadji. But it'll be interesting. It'll be him or Cantwell. We'll see.
Yeah, it will be. But it's just, I hope it creates a bit of competition and it just makes the players even better than what they are at the moment. And before we move on to the forwards here, Chris, a wee comment from Paul McGarrigle was made with the midfield, if only playing one holding midfielder, and this is part of the reason why I think Raskin was brought in. I said it was only 10 minutes we saw, but we saw his engine, his sort of tenacity to go and try and win a ball here. So what do you think about this from Paul McGarrigle, saying playing only one hold midfield player? We've got Raskin, Lawrence, Kent, Cantwell and Tillman. We know Beale's talked about Tillman playing the sort of 6 or the 8 before, and we know that Lawrence can certainly occupy that position as well, but that looks very good as an attacking threat in the pitch there, Chris.
Aye, it does. It's easy to forget that Lawrence is there because he was out so early in the season. He did look good coming for a deeper role. I think he did play it in one of the games and he looked good. He's got a tackle in him as well, and he is an attacking threat. I think we were asking the other day, you could see he's not going to be bullied. I think the guy he was tackling initially was twice his size. He just went straight through him, straight away. So it could be an option going forward. The thing about Cantwell and Tillman we were speaking on earlier, I think Beale's got them. I'm surprised by their work rate tracking back as well. I thought Cantwell would be a bit of a luxury player, and I didn't think, and Tillman's a bit of a luxury player as well, but he seems to in the last few weeks, Tillman's, I think we were talking about it in the group chat, the two of them had made the most recoveries in the last game, most interceptions. So if you can get the work rate into them, then as we were saying, it's good to have competition in all the positions, plenty of players.
Yeah, that's it. But could you see Rangers playing something like this, especially domestically? Like, because it is something that's been very frustrating, especially around about the stands, and people are talking about it. Why are we playing with 2 defensive midfield players at home sometimes? Bill thought, I think he even said it in his press conference at the weekend, I'm a fan of football. I thought, let's go with it. I surprised my coaching staff by even sticking an attacker on. But can you see Rangers sort of adapting to this?
I think so. Obviously, keeping the 2 defensive midfielders gives you the control. I think that's what he's looking for, a bit of control in the midfield and let the forward 4 try and get the goals. But if we're playing against banks of 10, there's no need for 2 defensive midfielders. But I think it depends who the personnel is that's playing. Like if it's a Kamara and a Jack, there's no need for it. But if it's a Lawrence and a Raskin, then I think each player's got their individual qualities. They're going to be suited to different kind of games. It just depends who the opposition is on the day, I think.
Yeah, that's it. And Craig, sort of the next aspect of the team to talk about here, and again, it's no easier than talking about the midfield as the forward 3 here. We could just do a full podcast just based on if everybody was fit, who do we want up front? Obviously, we've got Morelos, who's come back into a wee bit of form since Beale's come back in. I think he's in 7 goals in the league for the season this year. Now we've got Cholak, who's on 11. And Roof, I couldn't tell you how many he scored off the top. A couple of things to talk about here. Apparently, a bid was received from Konyaspor in Turkey, a team I've never heard of them, so couldn't tell you. I'm always a bit dubious when there's links coming out of Turkey. I don't know how much I fully believe the stories in there, but it's an interesting one. Before we get into that, just would you say Morelos was happy with it? What would you say was an acceptable bid for Morelos? Should he go? Would you take like £1 million for him, or do you think he's better in the team till the end of the season?
Fredo Morelos. Quite frankly, I love him, but I don't trust him. I don't trust him to maintain the form. I don't trust him to maintain the fitness. It's fine just now. Long term going forward, no for me. I think we signed him under Caixinha, is that right? And I know Johansson was responsible for identifying him and all that jazz. But we've had our money's worth. He's not going to. He's let himself down too often with his attitude to put a price tag on his head. So he either needs to sign an extension, which I think he probably should do, and then really knuckle down and try and raise that value and give Rangers the return that, quite frankly, we deserve after giving up Fredo Morelos the loyalty we've shown him.
Yeah.
And go and invest in a new striker. Čolak looks good. We've just not seen enough of him. He started well, scores goals, different type of striker. I'd like to see us play two up top. Kamar Roof's made of glass, right? So at the same time, he's scored one of the best goals I think I've ever seen. So that speaks to his quality. But I'd like to see us in the transfer market for another striker and play Alfredo in the meantime until he inevitably gets fat again. Easy for me to say, but I think Beale's played his best players. I think Morelos is one of the best players at the club. I just don't trust him to maintain the form, and I'd like to see us sign another striker in the summer.
So would you let Morelos go then, or would you keep him based on that?
I'll let the player decide what he wants to do. Why would you go to a Turkish club you never heard of? I know some of the Turkish clubs have signed some of our players in the past. Kenny Miller springs to mind. McGregor went out there, right? There's a bit of taboo when it comes to the wages they offer and what you actually receive in your bank account. So up to Alfredo. Personally, I think that we get more value on the form he is in with a cup final and some trophies to play for until the end of the season, rather than selling him for a minimal fee at this point.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Chris Paul McGarrigle here says, the last few seasons, Alfie didn't have any competition up top. Now Čolak, they can both push themselves on. Something that I've heard that a lot of times this season, that Čolak isn't quite a Beale player. Where do you lie in this whole discussion in terms of Čolak fitting into the squad, and what would you do? Would you keep Morelos at the club, given that he seems to provide something a bit different, a bit more of a focal point than Čolak under this Beale system?
Aye, he's the best all-round striker at Ibrox. Obviously, he does his best, but I think we said in the group chat the other day, he does his best work 30 yards for goals, whereas Čolak in and out in the box. It's obviously, as we were saying earlier, different players are going to be suited to different games. I wrote an article the other day that should be coming out in the not too distant future, but it was as though I was just arguing with myself all the way through the article. 1 minute I was saying, let him go, and the next minute I was like, no, he can't go. So I would keep him if he can. As Craig is saying, his fitness and that, he needs to get his conditioning much better. But I'm hoping this resurgence under Beale is a sign of things to come, and he can get back to a decent level. But I wouldn't be getting held to ransom by him either. And I think we should definitely be in the market for another striker in the summer, regardless. As Craig said, Roof, I don't even take Roof into contention anymore. Probably the best finisher at the club, but he's not available at all. So there's no point in persevering with him, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's been so unfortunate, Roof. For what it's worth, I'm the same. If everyone's fit, I'm having Lawrence, Helander and Roof in my team. But I suppose there's a reason why these guys of this quality are at Rangers, because they are carrying their injury problems. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm not really too sure what I would do in the Alfredo Morelos situation. I agree. There's a phrase that you've said there, Chris, that we shouldn't be held to ransom by him, and I totally agree on that. But if you'd asked me 4 weeks ago what my opinion was on Morelos, I'd have driven him to wherever he wanted to get driven to myself. But now that's a couple of goals he scored in the Kilmarnock game. He looked really, really good against Hearts. Totally off. It was frustrating the life out of me at the game against Ross County the weekend. So I don't know. I think it depends what week you ask me. But yeah, I think I largely agree with you guys there. But the point is that we've got a very strong squad now. Hopefully, if we can see some of these, I was going to say Hollander and Roof getting fit, but even without that, we still got a very strong squad. But clear there's a wee few additions. Look, we've got about 10 minutes of the podcast left. So, seeing as I don't think there's going to be a podcast until the Ross County game, not the Ross County game, the Partick Thistle game, sorry. Let's talk a wee bit about that. I'll stick with you in this, Chris, with this point, because you understand why in a moment, Craig, because I don't think this benefits you more than anything else. But the kickoff time, I know it's been moved for TV, but 4 o'clock on a Sunday, Chris, what is that all about? That's a scandalous decision to have a game of football on at that time.
I don't know what they're thinking. Like, what games are affecting it being shown earlier? I have no idea. Like, why could it not have been the afternoon kickoff? You're talking it doesn't really affect me. I'm only an hour away, but for folk that are travelling over for Northern Ireland and for down south and that, it's just ridiculous for a Sunday night. Obviously, folk have got their work the next morning and all that as well. It's just a farce, but it's the whole Viaplay, I think, has been a bit of a farce. The streaming's been farcical, and can't watch the bloody game. It's just horrendous, isn't it? Tin pot comes to mind.
Yeah, we could say that a few times. And what time will you be able to watch the game at then, Craig? Is it just a case of rolling out of bed and turning the TV on?
I just put my phone on the chest. It's the even easier option.
Yeah.
I think it's magic. The NFL has their big games on Sunday night football, and it works over here. And then folks somehow miraculously make their work in the morning. But I hear what Chris is saying. I mean, we've got a lot of supporters that travel, and that's a nightmare for them. But are they clambering to get to see Partick Thistle? I'm not so sure, but it's an important game nonetheless because it's the cup game, so a result's required regardless.
Yeah, 100%. Look, but and again, before we get into who we expect to see, what we expect the lineups to be, etc., Craig, I'll stick you here on this wee point. It is, and I could not believe this when I found this out, that there's 8 Scottish Cup games over the weekend, and only 2 of the 8 will have VAR at the games. Obviously, it's the two big teams from Glasgow, but that for me, that's scandalous. How can a competition be fair if the rules are not being applied to everybody across the board? I think before I came on, there was something on social media. I believe that some of the clubs have actively chosen not to have VAR, which is, I just find bonkers, Craig.
It's madness, Kyle. It speaks to the backwater that is the Scottish game. Unfortunately, it needs massive investment. There's just no, I forget the right word here, but there's no ambition, in the game. We need a massive cash injection, but that's just a farce to hear that. I don't understand how the game can be balanced and fair if only 2 of the games have, the standards required for the modern day game. So no doubt the other games there'll be an incident, and it'll be a nice big media story for the papers to run with. And that's how Scotland works. We just love a bit of drama. We can go, oh my God, can you believe that? I can, because you're doing it to yourselves. The Scottish game is just laughable at times, and that's why we don't get the time of day. So I waiting with the breath to see the Kilmarnock penalty.
Yeah. And Chris, the exact same question to you. Like, this is just another sort of farcical episode with VAR. Like, my understanding is that it is available at these grounds, but as I said, clubs are. How can clubs have a choice not to use it? That's what I genuinely find a bit mental, Chris.
Aye, tin pot, as we said. I think I read earlier that it costs each club £10,000 to have VAR at the stadium. So they've opted out. I think Dundee United was one of the teams. They've opted out of using it. Obviously, I don't know how you can have it in 2 games and no in the rest. I was listening to Ewan Cameron on the radio. I don't know what folks' thoughts on him are, but he was
I don't
saying
admit that too much.
he thinks he was saying he thinks from next season on VAR should only be used in the semi-finals and the finals. I think that's actually quite a good idea. It obviously levels up the playing field, and then once the semi-finals and finals come about, you maybe introduce the VAR.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what other clubs' thoughts are on an idea like that. But yeah, that does sound like a sensible idea from you and Cameron for once, Chris. But we'll leave that there. Look, Craig. Next sort of question is before we sort of go is how do you expect Rangers to line up on Sunday? We know it's absolutely massive for Rangers to win a cup this year. We know that the League Cup final that we've got coming up at the end of the month is absolutely massive. You know, I've heard people saying that if Rangers win that, it could potentially put a wee question mark in Celtic's head, and you know that wee bit of doubt creeps in, and you know potential to claw points back. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. But how do you think Beale will treat this game? Do you think he'll treat it quite professionally and start with a very, very strong lineup, or do you think that we'll see similar to what we saw in the Queen of the South game and see guys like you are starting in Leon King and Adam Devine?
I think he'll start with the strongest team possible. I think it's more about minutes for me. You know, understand resting players for games down the line, but you got to take care of business first. So I expect to see a change. I think maybe Jack will come in for Lundstrom at the starting lineup. But other than that, I think the starting 11 will remain relatively untouched. Maybe apart from the goalkeeper, I'm not sure if he's going to bring McLaughlin back in or not. But that's what I've liked about Beale since he's come in. No messing around. I'm going to play my best players and I'm going to get the best results. He'll be taking this game seriously. I know it's Partick Thistle, but you know, Rangers are one defeat away from a disaster, aren't we? Always. So I expect to see a strong team.
Yeah, and Chris, what's your thoughts on that there? I think I largely agree with what Craig said there. Although I can maybe see Anthony Cholak starting up front for Morelos in this one, because he's a man that's in desperate need of minutes in his legs since coming back from his injury.
Aye, definitely. I think, as Craig said, Lundstrom, I wouldn't risk him. Obviously, he's picked up that knock. I think it's Livingston away after this. I can't see Jack. I wouldn't play Jack at Livingston away, so I would be playing him against Partick. I wouldn't be making wholesale changes. We need minutes in the legs for obviously get everybody going for the cup final. But if I was resting MD, Morelos come out for Cholak. He needs minutes. I think he looks really rusty the last couple of games he's come on. I think we could maybe rest Kent if we wanted. Scott Wright would be there. Should be able to cope with Partick Thistle. Craig disagrees. And as we were saying earlier, Tav could maybe be doing with the rest, but I think we'll go full strength. So apart from the changes, it's full strength for me as well.
Yeah. Craig, do you think we'll see Raskin start?
It's a good shout, actually. He needs minutes. He says he wanted to sign players for the long term that can come in and make an instant impact, you know, hit the ground running. So there is a genuine dilemma now with the quality of players that we have there. So I think we'll see him feature. I think I said in my last point, it's all about minutes. So hopefully he'll start his strong 11, you know, we'll actually put away more of our chances, and then you can start seeing him, you know, bring 5 subs on in the 65-minute mark or something like that and get some minutes in the legs of Raskin and the boys that are knocking on the door. As long as we get the result, that's all I care about. I don't care who starts.
Yeah. That's it. And Chris, just before we go, can I just get a wee score prediction and maybe a couple of scorers off you?
Putting in the spot. We're trying to get somebody doing, aren't we? I'm going to go 6. Goal scorers, Jolak 2. They've lost their last 2 games. They're absolutely dumb. We should be scudding them. I don't know who the scorers will be.
That's fine. I'll if it's 6-0, I'll make it easy for you. We'll call it a Raskin hat trick and a Cantwell hat trick. All right. And Craig, yeah, Craig, and who are you picking as the goal scorers, and what do you think the scoreline will be?
I think we need to do better at converting our chances. We absolutely leathered Hearts, and still should have been a lot more. So I'll go with 3-0 and a Cholak double and Scott Wright as a cameo.
Oh, there we go. That's that. I think you've just said that to wind me up on your first. If that's been a plan,
coming on. Put it that way, he's definitely coming on.
Yeah, I'm the exact same as you. Do you know? I've been very critical of him and since he's sort of come into the club, but I think he's done okay since Beale's come on. I think that's the best that I can say about it. But look, just want to say thanks to Chris for joining us. Pleasure having you on, Chris.
Cheers, pleasure.
And Craig, how did you find your debut in the This Is Ibrox network?
It's great. I know I'm only on because it's there's nothing happening this week, but bring me back for a busy week. I'd be delighted to come on.
No, it was really great having you and good getting a perspective from over the pond. Look, everybody, just remember, if anybody's watching that hasn't given us a like and subscribe already, don't forget to do that. As I said, the next show, I believe this week, will be post-match on Sunday. I'm not too sure who's hosting that. I imagine it's Scott Patterson. He'll be back with a review of the Partick Thistle game, and we can dissect the 6 goals that Chris has predicted. But until then, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you all later.